want to say thank you to God, to the universe, to Divine Mind for always orchestrating for us effortlessly and seamlessly the things that we turn over to that. I particularly want to share some things that deal with that with you today. I've said this to you before, but I'm going to share some things today that helps me. And so I'm trusting that it will also help you. I used to think that the way I thought, everybody thinks like that. And I've, since discovered that everybody doesn't think the same way. Everybody doesn't see things the same way. So I don't know how this will arrive to your mind, to your intellect, to your heart. But I'm confident that because of the way the universe operates, because of the way God runs things, that you will get what you are supposed to get today as I just share some things with you that are just out of my heart. I want to read a story to you, that actually an excerpt of a story. I'll try to fill in the blanks as much as needs to be. This is out of the book of Acts in the Bible. Just a few verses here, and just listen to the story, and then I want to show you that this story is about you. It's about me. Now, when they had escaped, they then found out that the island was called Malta. And the natives showed us unusual kindness, for they kindled a fire and made us all welcome because of the rain that was falling and because of the cold. But when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened on his hand. So when the natives saw the creature hanging from his hand, they said one to another, "No doubt this man is a murderer, whom though he has escaped the sea, yet justice does not allow to live." But he shook off the creature into the fire and suffered no harm. However, they were expecting that he would swell up or suddenly fall down dead. But after they had looked for a long time and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. There are so many layers of truth in this story, which every story is a metaphor. Whether it's my story, your story, a Bible story, every story is your story. And it's a metaphor to the person who listens to the story. In other words, how does that apply to me? You can't live my story, and I can't live your story. But hopefully we can benefit from each other's stories. And this is a story. This is an excerpt from a story. Actually, what had happened is, we call him the Apostle Paul, had an epiphany, a lightning-like epiphany in his life. Let me ask you a question. And I don't want to be invasive here, but how many of you are on the spiritual path that we come together here? You're experiencing a spiritual awakening as a result of something that was an epiphany for you, just suddenly you had an understanding? Or how many of you could say that? It was just like a flash. Something happened and it changed you. It changed your trajectory. That was true of me 8 years ago. That's what happened to Paul. He was on his way to do harm to people who were practicing this kind of lifestyle, a spiritual awakening, if you will. And he was against it. And he had this experience that involved a bright light. It was so bright it knocked him down, and he literally was blinded by it. As a consequence of that, he started having conversation with the animating force of that light. It took him into 3 years of just being still and being meditative, contemplative, going inside himself, listening. Allegedly, he had conversation with Jesus, who, as you know, had already ascended. Now, all that stuff to the ego. Listen, the ego has a very hard time getting its head around spiritual things. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. I want to use this metaphor to break down some things that could be barriers in each one of our individual spiritual awakening walk. How do I get to know God better? How do I get to know who I really am better? How do I operate from that point as opposed to this, what I call dirt level, the lateral point of view? How do I operate in a way that gives me the authority that intrinsically and intuitively I feel like that I have? Do you feel like that even when things seem to be going wrong in your life, that you actually have authority over it? Or do you feel like that you are just subject to the whims of circumstance? That whatever happens, you're just going to roll with it, but you don't really have authority over it? What if I could show you today that you actually have authority over circumstance? That you do not have to be subject to whatever is happening around you, contrary to the way you may have been conditioned to believe. Our journey, our spiritual journey, is a relentless application of understanding that whatever is human. You remember this is going to date me a little bit. I can't remember the lady that sung the song, but it was a country artist. She said, "I'm only human." That's the line I can remember. You remember that song? Anybody know the song? Anthony, you don't know that song? I'm just a woman. Na, 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 na. Wasn't it One Day at a Time? One day at a time? You don't remember the song, One Day at a Time? There's a line in there that says, the woman says, "I am only human." I used to think that. Some of you may think that you're only human. I'm convinced that you're not. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced that what you actually are is not human. You are having a human experience, but that is not who and what you are. If you think in those terms, then by thinking that way, it automatically makes you subject to human creation. I want to tell you this. I discovered this. You may not have yet discovered it. You may already be way ahead of me. But you are a creator. And you are creating all of the time, whether you know it or not. The experience you're having is your own creation. What you're experiencing in your life right now. If you like it, you created it. If you don't like it, you created it. You say, how did I create it? Well, let's get into that a little bit today. Let's go back to our story. Paul, after having this epiphany, got so fixated on what he believed his mission was. I have another question for you. How many of you feel like you have a mission on this planet? You have one. Does anybody feel like, I don't, if I have a mission, I didn't know it? Does anybody like that? Angel taught us some time ago that we all share the same purpose. And we could change that to the same mission. I believe that's true. I believe that we all have the same mission on this planet. But that mission just wears different clothes. It doesn't look the same on you as it does on me. But if you get underneath it, we're all trying to do. How many of you want to be a benefit to other people? You want to be. How many of you want to have noble and high thoughts? That's your preference. I could go on and keep talking, asking those questions, and everybody would continue to raise their hand because we're, in that sense, we are alike. Now, it's like Rudy Harsh saying to us, there's one thing we can agree on, and that's absolutely nothing. You remember that? What does that mean? I thought we just had an agreement that we have a similar mission. In human terms, that mission will look different in every person on this planet. But when you examine the essence of every person's stated mission, you'll discover that everybody wants to be a benefit. Everybody wants to be a blessing. Everybody wants to be lifted themselves and would like to be involved in lifting other people. I like this. Some people call us, I think accurately, light bearers. Light bearers. You remember what Jesus said? He said, "You are the light of the world." Do you believe that? You are the light of the world. That's what you are. How does one get rid of darkness? Do you fight darkness? Do you work against darkness? Or do you just turn on the light? How hard is it for light to be light? Think about it. Does light struggle and get up in the morning and say, "I can't forget what I do"? Are y'all still with me? Light does not struggle at being light. It just naturally is that. I submit to you that I want to speak to the part of you that naturally is good, that naturally is powerful, that naturally has divine authority, that naturally is light and does not have to work at being what naturally is. It's just natural. The human calls it supernatural. And what happens in that plane, we say, are miracles. But I have discovered through my studies and my contemplations that really miracles are just an idea that egoic human minds think when something happens outside of the ordinary for the human. But in law terms, everything happens by law. Raymond Hollywell says that law is a word he substitutes for God. So others would say everything happens by God. But actually, in order to get some kind of working relationship with God, you have to understand that what we're calling God is law. It's immutable. Do you know what the word immutable means? It means you cannot alter it. You cannot change it. You can't contaminate it. It is what it is. Immutable law is the basis for everyone in this room's nature. Nature, your natural state, what you naturally are. Now here's a guy that had an epiphany that completely changed his life. And so instead of going to bring harm to people that he disagreed with, he actually got on their side and started being one of their greatest spokespersons. But not until after he had spent 3 years having conversation with Jesus, having conversation with higher thought, more noble thought, more powerful thought, thought that transcends human qualities. If I operate in my ego, which I have done relentlessly for 55 years, and after 55 years, I've worked diligently to undo the human stuff in me, to become who I really am. In operating at the human level, when a storm comes, we batten down the hatches. But when you operate at a spiritual level, you can actually take authority over the storm. Now, the ego, if I tell you that and say, "Here's what you're capable of doing," the ego says, "Well, I like that." And the ego always tries to usurp and hijack every spiritual truth and make it its own. The ego does not want to lose its identity. The part of us that says, "I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse." We take on an identity and our ego loves that identity, and it doesn't want anybody to mess with that identity. There are other people who identify as sick or broke or sorrowful, or some are pompous, some are successful. Some are arrogant. It doesn't matter to the ego. It just says, give me an identity. Let me hold on to that identity. I will not relinquish my identity under any circumstances. When that gets interrupted by a spiritual encounter that gives you, at least for a moment, a view into who am I really? Why am I really here? It starts breaking things apart. Now, my experience is when the spiritual part of me starts trying to take control of this part of me says, no way are you going to do that. Every time I've ever purposed in myself that I'm not going to do that anymore, the ego says, oh yeah, I'm going to make you want to do that more than you've ever wanted to do that before. A perfect example of this is if you've ever decided to go on a diet, and the diet that you went on specified certain foods that you were not supposed to eat, and all of a sudden, those were the foods you became the most hungry for. That's the ego part of us that says, "Oh no, you're not going to go away from this. I'm going to hold you to this." The ego wants to hijack your spiritual persona, the truth of your being, and own it. The ego was designed to be a servant. It was not divinely designed to be the master. When it is the master, it's a hard taskmaster. It's not fun to be under the rule of an ego. But if we can get our ego to be in the right spot, it makes a great servant. This part of me stands before you as a servant to the truth of my being. Did you hear that? This part of me that you see stands here divinely designed to be a servant to the part of me that you cannot see. That was the intent of this. So if I can use it like that, it becomes a vehicle that can come and stand in front of you and convey some thought to the truth of you that can help you get complete authority over all of this stuff. After this blinding light experience that Paul had, he got his mission fixed in his mind. And his mission, he believed, was to help Gentiles. Who are Gentiles? All the people that aren't Jews. His mission was to help them understand the Jesus message. And he arduously, relentlessly went about preaching that message. As a result, he got thrown in prison because some people didn't like what he was saying. As a result of being thrown in prison, he was mishandled because being a Jew, the people that handled him didn't understand that he was also a Roman citizen. But after being mishandled, they were going to shuttle him off. And he said, "Oh, no. You tell the main guy to come get me because I am a Roman citizen." And they gasped because they had treated him in a way that was a violation of Roman law. They wanted to sneak him out the back door, but he said, "No, I want that guy to come get me." The reason is because he had a mission. And he wasn't just trying to throw his weight around. He had an idea. He had a plan. His plan was, I intend to get in front of Caesar because I want to tell Caesar about Jesus. So this began to be a complex story. This part that I read to you is part of that story. He ended up under arrest, being put on a boat to be shipped to a place that would ultimately lead him to an audience with Caesar. When he got on that boat, the first thing they encountered was some really bad weather. Now, if I say, do you understand what it's like to experience stormy conditions? Is that a metaphor you can understand? Is there anybody in this room that's all your life, it's just been sunshine? You're laughing because you doubt there's anybody in here that's had that. It's safe to say that everybody in this room has experienced stormy weather in your life. Yes? That's what they started experiencing in this boat ride on this ship. Then it got even more austere. They went 14 days without eating. How many of you think you could go 14 days without eating? What's the longest you ever went without food? Anybody? 3, 2, 5, 7. The longest for me was 10. And I'm telling you, your body goes through a process that after about 3 days, you get your strength back. But my experience, I never stopped wanting to eat. I actually did lose my hunger pains. I didn't have hunger pains, but I wanted to eat. And if you are driving down the road, you'll see every billboard with every hamburger, right? And if you watch TV, you can't believe how many commercials are about food. And you can't watch Chef Ramsay and fast. That's just not, that's not going to work. Because I can be full and watch Chef Ramsay and get hungry. The power of suggestion. 14 days these guys were on this ship in bad weather without food. And on the 14th day, under the tutelage of Paul, who was a prisoner, he had gotten some gravitas with these people and some pull. And he said, we need to eat. And so they ate, and they were encouraged after 14 days with the food they ate. Then the people that were assigned to Paul to watch over him abandoned him and actually offered the suggestion of throwing him overboard. Somebody that wasn't even part of his entourage stood in and kept that from happening. And about the time he survived that, they suffered shipwreck. And the ship was beaten into pieces. And literally, the people on the ship escaped to this island where I read the little part to you, Malta, hanging on to pieces of the ship. That's the story. So let me ask you, does that in any way relate to any life experience you've ever had? When trouble comes, it seems to bring its cousins, its aunts, its uncles, its nephews. I mean, when trouble comes, it never wants to come by itself. It wants to bring as many people with it as possible. So we go from stormy weather, hunger, abandonment, and finally shipwreck. And what is shipwreck? What's the metaphor there? It's like it's just everything just went to hell. I mean, there's just nothing left. You know, I don't even have anything but a piece of something to hold on to. Does that relate to any experience you ever had in your life? This is the way it works in human condition. I want to show you that Paul, at this point, had not attained to the level that Jesus had attained to, although the level Jesus attained to is attainable. Hear me. See, when Jesus encountered a storm, he told it to be still, and it did. This is going to sound crazy to your ego, but that's the power you have. You have authority over the elements. Yes, you do. Not your ego. Your ego would love to. Your ego doesn't have that authority. Your ego is subject to those things because it's made out of the same substance. But your ego is not animated by the storm. Are you listening to me? Your ego is not animated by conditions. Your ego is not animated by negativity. It is animated by the part of you that is the authority over the elements. Listen, divine mind created you in its own image and gave authority to the part of you that was designed after God and said you would have authority over all the works, God speaking in first person, of my hands. You have authority over all of that. I know if this is the first time you've ever heard this, you're writing me off right now as certifiably insane. But if you have been exploring God stuff, you start lifting inside to a place where you start seeing, instead of the God stuff being insane, it's the ego that's insane. Have you ever watched an ego have an argument? Have you ever been in an argument with the opposite sex? Have you ever had this long discussion about, it was this color? No, it was this color. We went at this time. No, we went at this time. I've seen people, fortunately I've never done this, but I have seen people have arguments over the most imbecilic things. And I mean, they're vested in it. I mean, they'll fight over it. I've seen Christian people fight over, literally come to blows over whether Jesus was in the Godhead or the Godhead was in Jesus. Some of y'all don't even know what that even is about, and you're fortunate that you don't. But my point is, when ego gets involved, you're talking about insane. You're talking about crazy. The ego is certifiably crazy. It's insane. It will argue, fuss, fight over the most ridiculous, mundane things and elevate them to monumental things that causes problems in your life. That it starts out when you're young, and when you get my age, you start having repercussions from it. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. First thing is, everybody in this room, I think we agree that we all have had seasons of adversity. Can we say yes? The second thing is that as you begin to identify with your mission, why am I here? I want to tell you something really beautiful. You can start expecting the unexpected. After shipwreck, after all these people made it to the shore, a shore of an island they were unfamiliar with, in the older translations, it called them barbarians. Now, in this translation, it calls them native. Really, the word barbarian simply meant people who didn't speak Greek. And so these people didn't speak the language that was the most common language used at this time in this part of the world. They get to the island, and the first unexpected thing that happened for them was these people that didn't speak their language came out and was kind to them and built a fire for them. Once you understand that you are of a higher order than just this flesh, you can start expecting the unexpected. The unexpected thing was that these people who I don't even know are going to be nice to me. Have you ever had that happen to you? You got in a bad way and somebody you didn't even know was nice to you. Has that ever happened to you? Well, when that happens, what do you think? Do you think, well, man, people are not as bad as I've been told they are? Huh? I wonder if people are as bad as you think they are. I wonder if people are as really horrible as you have thought they were. Present company accepted. Isn't that kind of how we operate egoically? It's like, well, no, I mean, I've got good friends, but man, people are bad. Where does that come from? You know, the people in the Middle East, they're just bad people. Muslims, they're just bad. Do y'all believe that? Do y'all believe that Muslims are bad? Do y'all believe that Christians are bad? I haven't had much interaction with Muslims that I know of, but I've had some interaction with Christians that made me go away and say, Christians are bad. But are Christians bad? What happens to us is we have such a proclivity to a negative perception of things as a human that if somebody tells us bad news, we believe it quick. But if somebody tells you something good, you want to research it. You want to Google it. You want to go online and make sure. Am I right? Why are we like this? We have become like this because we have been relentlessly conditioned to believe that we are subject to human thought and human creation. Jesus came to change your mind, to change my mind, to change our minds and say there is another way to think. When Paul got knocked down by that light, it changed his mind and he changed his ways. Now watch this. The first unexpected thing was the kindness of these people, and then the sympathy. They started trying to get food for them and comfort them. What a beautiful thing. Then there was another unexpected thing. As Paul was getting the fire ready, he put his hand into a bundle of sticks, and out of that bundle came a viper that the natives were very familiar with. I don't know if Paul knew anything about it or not, but it bit him. It fastened onto his hand. And he did something that I want to help you understand that you have the authority to do as well. He shook it off. Everybody say, shake it off. I want to show you that every next thing that presents itself to you that has the appearance of being adverse to you, you have the authority and the power to not accept it, but to shake it off. You do not have to succumb to it. Now, here's what all the people on that island knew. How many of you are surrounded by people that know things? They know stuff. Paul is surrounded by the islanders, and they know that that is a deadly viper, and that if you get bitten by that viper, you die. They know that. Sometimes it's good to not know some things. I don't know if Paul knew it or not. All I know is that Paul at this moment was operating in the status of his mission. If you will come into your mission is to bring light. Your mission is to bring hope. Your mission is to bring peace. Your mission is to bring healing. Is it or not? Is that what you want to do? That's our mission. All of it wears different clothes. Mine comes looking like this. Yours comes looking like that. I do certain things during the day that are maybe nothing like what you do during the day, but our mission is the same. And on that mission, I have discovered, I'm going to share a personal thing with you before I close. Once I'm in that mission, I'm in that zone, poison can come to me, and I have the ability to just shake it off. This was a poisonous situation. Paul was not going to be distracted by it. He did not focus on the snake. He did not give the snake his attention. Instead, he just shook it off and kept doing what he was doing. The moment you get distracted by whatever negative thing has presented itself in your life, listen, the moment you get distracted and it gets your focus, here's how powerful you are. You will continue to create what you're looking at. If you own a business and you walk into your business and the first thing you see is everything everybody in that business is doing wrong, and that gets your attention, you are at that moment as a divine creator, you are recreating that very situation you saw that you did not like. I'm here to tell you that from this day on, when you come into an encounter with something that is negative that you think needs to be fixed, don't give it your attention. Shake it off. Do not let the poison of that thing get into you. Here's where I want to take this home with you. Resentment. Say the word. Resentment is a form of hate. And resentment has so many different forms, I won't be able to name all of them today. Well, once you become aware that resentment is not healthy for you, that you don't want to hold resentment, I don't know if this will be true for you, but let me tell you it was true for me. When I read from the Ascended Masters every morning, and they relentlessly tell me, let go of every human creation. Let go of everything that is not positive in your life. Don't give any of your time or energy to anything that's not love, that's not forgiveness, that's not peace. Don't give any energy to it. And as I have been made aware of these things, and I started examining all the places that resentment has lived in my life, it's almost overwhelming. I'm going to go through some things and let's just see how it is for you. You're in your car, you get in traffic, somebody crowds you, you don't like it, you resent it. Cuss word comes out. Some of us. Or some critical statement comes out. How many of you on Facebook? Just about everybody on Facebook? People that actually live in the world on Facebook? As you're scrolling through Facebook, do you come across pictures and immediately have a criticism of what you see? Does that ever happen? How many of you have been sitting in a restaurant, just sitting in a restaurant, somebody comes in and immediately you have a thought, they're too fat, they're too this, they're too that. Am I the only one that's had those kind of things happen? Y'all don't do, you're already there. You're up there. How many of you have ever been just in your own thoughts and you started thinking about some things that happened in your family in the past? And you started resenting it. You got mad about it. Are y'all here? Are y'all trying to act like I'm crazy right now? When you start digging out the sources of resentment in your life, if you're anything like me, you're going to be overwhelmed by how many places resentment has come into your thought process. Just resenting it. Now, irritation is a form of resentment. Criticism, when I criticize, that don't look good. You're going to wear that? All of those things. And we build our life around those things. I don't like the way you eat. I don't like the way you chew. You say, that's silly. You think people don't do that? Are we in this house? Here's the thing about it. We can continue to just make light of that, and a lot of people, unfortunately, people who claim to be Christian, that they're self-possessed, professed Christians, their idea, and this used to be mine, I'm going to live a life that makes me be a better human being. Sounds good. I just want to be a better human being. You think that's good enough? No matter how good of a human being you become, if you think you're a human being, you're going to be subject to all human things. But if you decide that you're not going to give any more of your energy trying to be a better human being. See, here's the problem. The moment you start trying to be a better human being, you will become critical of yourself. And all forms of criticism is a form of resentment, which is a form of hate. What you actually are was designed by God to not engage in any form of resentment. Resist not evil. You're not supposed to get into that because that's not who you are. You are not about making this program better and that program better and making me better. You are already perfection in human expression. But the reason why nobody knows it is because you thought you were the expression. If I can help you understand that you are not the expression, but you are the animating divine force of that expression. That's why your name is I am. That's why God's name is I am. That's the reason why I am is supposed to be followed with a positive and not a negative, because nothing is wrong with I am. I am is healthy. I am is wealthy. I am is perfect in all of its ways. I was sharing with Angel just before. I read an article about the mathematical calculations that go on in a baseball player's mind when he's playing outfield and the fastball is thrown. His eye sees the bat hit the ball, and instantly, in microseconds, milliseconds, his brain is calculating the trajectory of that ball. And if he won't sit there and overthink it, if he'll just do what his body is told to do by his mind, he will run and end up in the exact spot where that ball drops. It is possible to live without mistake. Yes, it is. Not as a human, but as a child of God, it is possible to live a mistake-free life. Science says that the mind that calculates that, their observation is, if we would learn to let it run us, we could live a mistake-free life. Science says that. Check me out. There is something in us that is so much more than what we're looking at today, that if we would let go and let God, if we would deny this self as being the master and accept the Christ in us as the master, we can live an overcoming life. That is our promise. That is our heritage. The best distraction in the world is the one that doesn't appear as such. When you start resenting, if you're anything like me, you build a case for it. Well, I think this because they said this. And we get completely invested in a logical case-building thing of why we don't like this. When, I'm telling you, this is crazy to your ego, but if you'll just give it some space in you, you can live at a place that was given to you by God, that you don't even have to get involved in all of this. You say, so, now it was crazy to me at first. As a matter of fact, I spent so much time that I started ascending, literally. And I got to where I didn't care about this anymore. And I made a conscious decision. I said, I don't think I'm going to be worth anything to anybody if I keep going like this. And now I realize my ego talked me out of it. And so I consciously countered some of the trajectory of my spiritual life. And I started reading things to make me reconnect with this. I know, it's wacky, but I did it. And I brought myself back down. Here's an experience I've just been having. I told you after I read Totally, my mind changed so much, I didn't get sick anymore. Just didn't get sick. Just stopped getting sick. The only thing I could point my finger to was I didn't think like I used to think. So I didn't get sick anymore. But after I let my mind come down that ladder, Jan and I were in our bedroom having a conversation, and we got into some really negative conversation. But it was the culmination of a process of thoughts that I had allowed back into my life that I had completely rejected and gotten out. And after we had the conversation, I looked at her and I said, that was about one of the stupidest conversations we've ever had. But I want to tell you something, the damage was already done. I started experiencing severe chest pains. I wasn't sick, but I started having chest pains, and I started having what you read is symptoms of a heart attack. I couldn't get over it. We got in the car. We went to the little emergency room in Castroville. They gave me nitroglycerin. They wired me all up, gave me 2 EKGs, did all the stuff. I don't know if what they did, but finally the pain went away. It seemed to be, to me, associated with my digestion. I got better, went to see a cardiologist, and the 2 doctors basically concluded the same thing, but they wanted to check me out further. A week or so went by. 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, my chest is, it's hurting. So I get her up. She's groggy, asleep, and we drive all the way to Westover Hills emergency room. But on the way, we start talking, and she said, you know what bothers me about this? She says, this is against what you teach. This is not in keeping with what you believe. And so we started talking. Our conversation went higher and higher. And I started sharing with her things I know to be true about the divinity in me, about God in me. By the time we got to Westover Hills, my symptoms were gone. And I said, let's just sit here. I don't want to just walk in there and there's nothing wrong with me. And it was in that parking lot, it dawned on me that I had allowed myself to fall into human creation, human thought processes. And when I was talking the way I know how to talk, all of my symptoms went away. I felt completely well and whole sitting in that parking lot. I didn't go in, we drove home. And I told her, I said, I figured this out. This is not physical. This is spiritual. Once you allow your mind to wrap itself around and act and say amen to I am a divine being, all of your thoughts from that point on have more weight. They have more power, whether they're positive or negative. When I allowed myself to get into a negative thought process, the results manifested themselves so much quicker than they ever would have. You see, there's a lot of children that are resentful right now. There's a lot of teenagers that are resentful. They're not going to feel it in their body for another 10 or 15 years, possibly. Sometimes it happens quick, sometimes it doesn't. What I'm here to tell you is I'm confident of this, that every form of resentment will cause destruction in your physical body, because your body is not the boss. It follows the edicts of your thought processes. And when it doesn't know what else to do, it manifests cancer. It manifests indigestion. It manifests heart failure. It manifests liver collapse. It manifests kidney problems. It will manifest somewhere in your body because you were not divinely designed to be a person of resentment. You are an ambassador of forgiveness. You are an ambassador of peace. You are an ambassador of love and light and everything good. And when you allow yourself to own what you actually are, and you speak from that place, your words have power. You can tell the storm to be still, and it will. Jesus came to show us what a God-man looks like, what a God-child looks like. This is your heritage. This is who you are. The next time, if I've been able to help you become aware of, you know what, I don't want resentment in my life. I don't want to be a critical person. I don't want to be a judgmental person. Judge not lest you be judged. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a resistor. I want to be with the flow of God in my life. I want to be with the divine flow. When if that's your decision today, you're going to start being made aware. Every time something comes up and you resent it, here's what you do. Call your I am presence. Call on it out loud in your mind somehow. Call it and say, take authority over this. This body belongs to you. This body is not mine except in the sense of my I am presence. This body is a vehicle of divinity. I'm calling you to help me take authority over this. And I'm telling you that if you will release every form of resentment, every form of criticism, every form of judgmentalism, if you just will not entertain it, you will start rising in your experience. And what you're going to find out about yourself is that you are just naturally good. You do not have to try to be good. You just naturally are good. You're naturally beautiful. You are natural. I'm not blowing smoke at your ego right now. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the real you. This is who you actually are. And who you are has the power to every next thing that comes out of the fire of adversity and latches onto your hand. You have the power to shake it off. I'm asking you, next thing, just shake it off. Come on, just shake it off. Don't let it be a part of you anymore. Don't give your attention to it. Don't give your hate to it. Don't give your love to it. Don't give it any focus whatsoever. And you will live in divine health. You will live in peace. You will live in love. This is the God plan for God's people. And you are God's people. You are God's people. That's who you are. Let go and let God. Every next thing that comes, what are you going to do? You promise? What are you going to do? Are you just going to shake it off? You're not going to let the poison have you. Good. Well, if I could have the assistance of my very beautiful wife, we have some things we'd like to do to close this out. While she's coming, we call the victory of peace. We call the victory of love. We call the victory of forgiveness. We call the victory of happiness. We call the victory of freedom. We call the victory of light. We call the victory of healing. We call the victory of supply. We call the victory of wealth. And everything divine, we call it. Are you calling it with me? Do you call it? When you call it, it has to come because you're the boss. You are the I am in physical form. Come here, sweet girl. We've decided, please bear with us. We're not going to be able to meet here next Sunday. We're not going to meet on Mother's Day. So we want to talk to the mothers a little bit before we go. We're going to have some positive things about mothers on our connection site to encourage and let you know how we love you and we appreciate you. But after next Sunday, we'll be back into the full groove. There's just, I don't want to go into all the boring details. There's some extenuating circumstances that we just said, look, let's use the law of non-resistance, and let's don't resist this thing. Let's go with the flow. So next Sunday, we will not meet here. But we have some special people that we want to acknowledge. And so you want to read? Okay. Jan had a beautiful idea. She's going to share something with you. And I guess I'm going to help her.
I thought I was helping him. So.
You are helping me.
Same thing. Okay. Most of you probably know that in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, that is considered to be the love chapter. And so we are going to just read some things, and we want to honor our mothers today. And we are going to substitute because we believe that mothers and love are the same. So we want to read this. Mothers suffer long and are kind. Mothers do not envy. Mothers do not parade themselves. They're not puffed up. Mothers do not behave rudely, do not seek their own. They're not provoked, and they think no evil. They do not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoice in the truth. Love bears all things. Mothers believe all things. Mothers hope all things. And mothers endure all things. Mothers never fail. And now abide faith, hope, love, or mothers, these three, but the greatest of these is love, or mothers.
For 30-something years, I delivered a sermon on Mother's Day, and always it was beautiful and emotional for me, because I believe that the mother expression is one of, if not the most comprehensive human expression of God's love. Listen, if you're a mother, I love you. If you want to be a mother, I love you. And the same thing that makes a mother makes a woman want to be a mother is the mother thing, and it's divine. It is the aspect of God that it actually makes it possible to manifest. If it were not for the female, if it were not for the mother, manifestation would be impossible. The father aspect of God cannot do it without the mother aspect of God. And so we love you, and we want to honor you today. And there are some mothers that we want to give special recognition to, and then we want to recognize all of our mothers.
Okay, we wanted to recognize 4 mothers that work relentlessly every week to make sure that you have a place. They want to make sure that you have coffee, that you have a place for your children. And so we would like for them to come when we call their names to come up, because we really do appreciate what they do, but we probably don't say it as much as we should. And so this is just an opportunity. And they are all physically, they have born children, but they are a mother to us here also. And so I would like Linda, and I would like Pat. And I would like Jody and Jamie. There are more that we could recognize, but I did want to recognize these 4 ladies because I can tell you that they work through the week getting ready for what happens here on Sunday. When you come and you walk in the door and there's coffee and there's donuts, there's been stuff that has happened during the week to make sure that that is there for you. And it is prepared, and then it'll be taken down and reassembled, and so those things happen. The fact that your children have a place to go, there are things that happen through the week that make sure that that happens on Sunday for you. Jody and Jamie, I know that they spend a lot of time. They sometimes haul their kids around doing what they need to do to get ready for what happens here on Sunday. And so they are providing an environment for you that you can hopefully grow and be encouraged. And we just want to honor these 4 ladies today.
You have something for them? And we at least have some honorable mentions, too, because Valerie has plugged for Pat, and Charnel has plugged for Pat in the past. And you're all wonderful, but these are people that have actually done some work for the rest of us, and we want them to know that we love them and we appreciate them. So, happy Mother's Day. Well, we love y'all, and we really appreciate what you do. Thank you so much. Thank you, baby. I love you. Now, for all the rest of our mothers, we have a gift for you that we just want you to know. Take it every time you smell it. Know somebody loves me. The connection loves you. The people at the connection love you. God loves you. The universe loves you. Listen, people love you. No more resentment, right? Do we have our song? I want y'all to go out of here dancing. Are y'all ready to dance? Pat's ready to dance. I don't even know how to dance, but I'll shake something. Because I'll shake it off. Are y'all blessed today? Are you blessed? Are you glad you came for our first one? Tell somebody the good news. You are a light bearer. Bear the light. All right. If we can get some music, we'll Well, I invited her. Well, It's trying to. She came a long way. Let this be your mantra. Is that it? That's the song? All right. Y'all know what to do, don't you? When trouble comes, you shake it off. All right. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you 2 weeks from today.